Hey yo, look out down below. Here comes a DK Kirblog. Oh yeah. And that's when everybody closes the window. Hello. So I had another topic planned for this week, but I am currently waiting to do it on a possible guest that will be joining me for it. So hopefully that one that I was planning for will be for this weekend. But in the meantime, I decided to tackle another question from TheFedoraGirl on Tumblr asking, I was listening to a bunch of old Kirblogs and I noticed you bring up the old Donkey Kong Country show more than once. What's your particular experience with Donkey Kong Country, if anything? Was there anything in particular that stood out about it to you? So my history with that show is quite unusual, and I'm actually going to tell some stories that date back like so far that I don't think I've really shared with too many people in the first place, just because it's never really come up. But they date back so far before two very key things came into my life: Mike Lucas and Pokemon, which was around I guess that would have been like the mid to late 90s or so. But nonetheless, so I got a Super Nintendo very late. I want to say maybe like 95 or so, way after it was out. And but I was absolutely hypnotized by a lot of the games that came out on it during that time. And the Donkey Kong Country Trilogy were a particular case of I just lived for those games. Like I was absolutely obsessed with everything about them for a very, very, very long time. In fact, Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, or Diddy Kong's Quest, is the very first game that I ever completed 100%, or in the case of that game, 102%. I also, this is back during the time where I collected a lot of players' guides, and I went through and I completed all the bonus stuff. I got all the DK coins and all that. Accomplished the Lost World and everything. And then also in recent years, I have also completed Donkey Kong Country 1 and 3 100%, or rather 101 and 103% respectively. I don't think I did the 105% or whatever for Donkey Kong Country 3. I don't remember exactly what it takes to do that. But either way, I completed the full ending and got all the the true stuff from it and everything. Donkey Kong Country 1, I later beat 100% on the Virtual Console. And then Donkey Kong Country 3, I actually beat at JonTron's house around the time that I was helping him, I believe, with the Halloween special that was coming out at the time, or maybe another one shortly before that. But either way, yeah. So they were big parts of my early childhood, and because once Pokemon came out, like that pretty much enveloped my entire life for a good solid year. And not to say that Donkey Kong Country did, but well, actually, okay. So here's kind of why it sort of did. So I want to say from about, I don't know, kindergarten to second grade, I had this friend named Nick. His name was Nick. And he and I were both big gamers, and we loved Nintendo stuff and et cetera. And so we both played all the Donkey Kong Country games, and we just got really fixated on the characters, and we were big fans of it and everything. This is also, I think, shortly before the N64 had come out too. So again, this is going way back. We just used to play the games all the time with each other, and although it's funny because I don't think I have any memories of us playing them cooperatively. I think we just played them a lot like at home, but we just talked shop about them all the time. And I remember, I think even around that same time in early elementary school, there was a kid who was a year ahead of me that I think that's right, he had the player's guide for Donkey Kong Country 2, which again was the one that I was big obsessed with at the time, and I borrowed it, and I remember it was like one of those cases of I had this weird camaraderie with this kid who was older than me, because you when you're in elementary school, very rarely do you ever actually mingle with people who are above or below your grade, because it looks embarrassing for whatever reason. Maybe that's changed by now, but back then it was the case in my school. But this one kid who was a little older than me, and he was a big gamer, he lent me his player's guide, and because I was obsessed with the maps, I loved the look of Crocodile Isle, the big world map of that game. And I borrowed it from him, and I was just like obsessed with it and just looking at the pictures and everything. And then I remember I forgot to bring it back one day. I was like, I'm sorry. He's like, if you don't bring it back tomorrow, I will kill you. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna. So I did, and he didn't kill me, and I'm here today to tell the tale. Anyway, so this friend Nick and I, and we were pretty tight. He was basically my Mike Lucas before I moved away to a different elementary school, and then met Mike Lucas, and then he and I became tight as shit. But yeah, we were both obsessed with Donkey Kong Country at the time. So the particular thing that kind of was a big deal about it for us. So, when you're in elementary school, again, I don't know if maybe this is still the case. I think I've said this before on another Kirblog at some point. Stop me if you've heard that one before. I don't know what school life is like for kids today, and I don't mean that in like an old man, like kids today kind of way. I'm genuinely curious because, again, with just the access people have to like technology and like the internet and everything, I don't know if kids like still play pretend. I'm not really sure, but either way, we used to do that a lot. We'd play pretend and we'd make up our own like TV shows and whatever. And so we basically came up. I don't remember exactly how this started, but we came up with an idea for a Donkey Kong Country TV show, basically. And I remember, I think there were several times where it started off as we tried like adapting the plot of the game and making it into a thing, but it ended up not really being that. So basically, okay, so from what I remember, I would always play Diddy Kong and Kiddy Kong, and my friend Nick would always play Donkey Kong and Dixie Kong. And then we'd trade off a lot of the other characters kind of just in between or whatever, right? So we do that, and we just kind of come up with different stories for each of them and just kind of do whatever. And all three of them were out by this time, and I'm trying to like really distinctly remember exactly everything about these, but I can recall that we made Donkey Kong because they were all like part of a family. They were all in the clan or whatever. So I made it so. Oh, first of all, we made it that they were all related. So yeah, it was about them being a family, which was kind of cerebral for a bunch of 5-year-olds or whatever. But we made Donkey Kong like the kind of surrogate father, like the older brother of the house, and Diddy and Dixie were like the kind of like goofing on each other, brother and sister. We didn't see them as boyfriend as girlfriend and girlfriend. I think we didn't have like the what is it, the instruction manuals that even like said that. We just kind of like, oh, whatever, we're their brother and sister, whatever. Sure, they're all Kong, so they must all be related somehow. And then Kitty was like the baby that they were taking care of, etc. That was the typical dynamic. And we'd have the other Kongs show up once in a while, and the other animal buddies and everything. And I think we had some stories about like, oh, how they discovered the animal buddies. We did this for a really long time. It felt like it might have only been like a solid year, but we were doing that for a really long time. And and sometimes we'd have them cross over with other games. I remember there was one where it was like, oh no, Mario is like jealous of Donkey Kong's popularity, so he goes to this mystical world where he converts the Donkey Kong games into Mario games and slowly starts transforming the Donkey Kong characters into Mario characters, like he's overriding them or something. I don't know why we made him into a bad guy. And then otherwise, we also had a lot of things where it was just like, we just came up with different ideas for like characters doing things and just kind of projected the Donkey Kong characters onto it. Like I remember we had one about, Dixie, just like going out and partying a lot. Nothing like inappropriate or whatever, because we were 5. We didn't have any indication of or knowledge of what the hell that meant. But like she was staying out late and DK was getting upset and Kitty was like, why is she leaving? And she was like going through some weird like teenage phase that we had some very vague comprehension of. It was very strange. And I look back and I think like, how did we even come up with some of that shit when we were that young? But it was very silly. And again, we just acted out the whole thing with each other and etc. And so we had a lot of that, and then Pokemon did eventually hit. No, actually, hold on, I'm forgetting. Diddy Kong Racing came out. I remember we came up with this plot about how Diddy was going off to be like a star, like he went off. He's like, oh, I got my own game, and it's all these other characters that I meet up with because you're like, we're all the other Donkey Kong Country characters in Diddy Kong Racing. It's just Diddy and all these other assholes that we don't know about. So we came up with this whole like story or whatever, and we just did this thing and it was like a special like 3-parter or some bullshit where like, oh no, like they have to go back and get Diddy or whatever, and they I think we even acted out some of the major races against like the bosses like Wizpig and his little underlings or whatever that are throughout the Timbers Island, and then eventually say, oh, I'm sorry that I abandoned you guys, like I'll come back home, like, oh yay Diddy, we love you or whatever, right? And then okay, so now here's where the next chapter is. So I forgot if I've mentioned before, basically many, many years ago, my mom was dating this guy named Marcus. He was a guy from England, and he was a lovely dude, and unfortunately he had to go back home, so the relationship didn't last very long, which was fine because then my mom eventually remarried to my stepfather, who's a firefighter named Kevin. But we still kept in touch with Marcus. He was a really good guy, and we actually went to go visit him in England. This would have been like 96 or 97, I think, something like that. So a few weeks before we go to visit Marcus in England, I get a call from him. He called us collectively, and he wanted to talk to me. And he was like, "Chris, you're not going to believe this. There's a Donkey Kong Country animated series airing on TV over here." And I'm just like, "Marcus, you're pulling my leg. I know. You know that me and Nick made up our own Donkey Kong show or whatever." He's like, "No, I'm serious. I'm going to tape it for you." And I was like, "Okay." So I get there, and he pops it in, and I unfortunately I couldn't take it back home with me because it was a European VHS tape, so it was a different format, and I wouldn't be able to get it. But either way, so I must have marathoned this tape so many goddamn times. And take note again, I was young. I was, by this point, maybe it was like 7 or 8 or something. I don't even remember. But I was just captivated, and I could not believe, after what felt like ages of me and my best friend at the time making up this like imaginary Donkey Kong Country cartoon show that we we dreamed of. Wouldn't it be great if they made this? And I watched it. It was 5 episodes, and I'm trying to remember particular what it was. It was the one where they go treasure hunting. And then they find out that it was just like, it was like some rotten bananas in a barrel that Donkey Kong hid when he was a kid. There was the dance competition where they have to go to like the Inka Dinka Doo place. It was the first one with the pirates showing up, like Captain Scurvy or whatever. The one with Eddie the Meanle Yeti, like having issues and like yelling at people or whatever. He was like having trouble sleeping or something. And I can't remember what the last one was, but there were 5 episodes on this tape, and I watched them over and over and over and over. Side note, the commercials were taped on it, so I saw a lot of European, or rather English commercials for their version of Fox Kids at the time. I think that's what it was on. And I saw that, and I remember they had any of my British followers, if you remember, I like to chew it. I like to chew it. Chew-it-saurus, he likes to chew it. That was stuck in my head for ages. And we never got Chew-its over here, so that infected me. Thank you for that. Shady remembers that commercial very vividly. Anyway, so I watched this tape over and over. I got totally obsessed with it. I go back home. I tell Nick about it, and he's like, "You're pulling my leg. There's no way." And I told him about like the disappointing side to me at the time was not that the show itself was horrendous, because the show is not very good. I am fully aware of this. But I told them like, it sucked because like they changed a lot of things. They changed some of the characters, and they made up some new stupid characters, and like the pirates are made into separate ones. They're not part of King K. Rool or whatever, and all this stuff. And the crystal coconut is this big MacGuffin, and it's not even Donkey Kong Island. It's like this new like moon-shaped island. I was just pissed off about a lot of like the liberties they took from the game lore. Just because the lore of the game world, that was kind of, I guess, a little like relatively consistent from what Rare seemed to do, but what the hell do I know? Either way, but I told him about that, and then eventually it starts airing on Fox Family on Sunday mornings in the U.S. So I think it was airing in Europe first because it was like a French animated show technically or something like that. I'm not entirely sure. I think it was Nelvana that was like producing it, because Devin Mack, the voice of Raccoon, actually knew a few people who worked on the voice recording of the show up in Toronto, where it was. But anyway, so the show started airing over here, and then Nick and I started watching it separately on Sunday mornings, and we were this kind of like superiority complex of like, man, our show idea was better. But I remember we got to that conclusion when we were like, well, I guess we should start kind of like adapting the stories of the Donkey Kong Country animated series into our show idea. So we started like acting out some of the episodes like from the show to the best of our knowledge. And then I was like, these are not as good. So we stopped doing that, and then that was kind of the end of it. And I watched a little bit more. I saw more episodes that I hadn't seen previously of the Donkey Kong Country series. And I was enjoying it for what it was, but again, I wouldn't realize until many years later. It's like, this is pretty shitty. Flashing forward a little bit more, Donkey Kong 64 comes out. This was pretty much at the tail end of my friendship with Nick. Donkey Kong 64 comes out, and we play through it and we beat it. And by this point, I remember, I think before that, one of the big like arcs that we did in the Donkey Kong show that we came up with was, I think we had adaptations of like Bomberman 64 and what the hell was it? And Mischief Makers. We had like them fighting characters from like those games or whatever, like them invading Donkey Kong Island or something, some weird shit like that. I don't fully remember, but we decided, oh, you know what? Why don't we give our show, quote unquote, an ending? So by this point, we had introduced Chunky Kong and Tiny Kong to the cast of the show, and we didn't really know, and Lanky as well, and we didn't really know what their actual personalities were. So we just kind of like made up that like Tiny Kong was like the bratty little sister of Dixie, which that was the case, that they were related, but that like she lived back at home with Dixie's mom or something, and she was like, oh, I left home because I hate mom. Like they had some kind of like weird, like not physical fight, but like some kind of like domestic argument. She like left to go live with DK and Diddy or something. And then I remember this is what I meant when like we just made shit up and just kind of adapted whatever. Like Nick and I were having just like some long conversation about like everything relating to like Pokemon the first movie coming out or something, and we just did it under the guise of like I was playing Chunky Kong and he was playing Donkey Kong. We were young and silly, okay? But finally, we decided let's put an end to the show because I think we're kind of growing out of this. But let's at least go out with a bang or whatever, you know. So we decided to basically adapt the final boss battle against King K. Rool in Donkey Kong 64, and so we just acted out like a fully fleshed out version of that. From the end of DK64, where they have like the big boxing ring and all that, and all 5 of the Kongs battle against them. I think that we also like probably found a way to integrate like Kitty and Dixie, who were our favorite characters that we did the most amount of stuff with in our stories that we came up with. We found some way to like work them into the story as well, and it was whatever. But yeah, we finally ended it, and then that was it. And then I guess while I'm on this subject, so Pokemon was continuing to air on TV, and one morning, by this point I had moved away. A little bit. I was still on Long Island, but I was in a different elementary school, and Nick and I were having to hang out and keep in touch with each other by just meeting up in, just outside of school or whatever. And then one morning, I remember it was the Farfetch'd episode had aired. Ironically, as one of Mike Lucas's favorite Pokemon is Farfetch'd. Nick, I called him up one morning and said, hey, Nick, I missed the episode this morning, because like something about like I think my tape went out or something like that. And I was like, "Hey, can you tell me what happened on the episode this morning?" And he said, "Oh, sorry, Chris, I'm too busy giving away my Pokemon cards to my little sister. I'll talk to you later." And that was the end. And I never heard back from him again until after I finished up 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade at my other elementary school, where I had already become basically new best friends with Mike Lucas. We combined our elementary schools into our middle school that we went to. I saw Nick throughout, the next several years, just kind of in the background, but it was always just kind of a solemn, that was it. Our friendship just kind of ended one morning, like completely out of nowhere, and that was it. But I remember also, and I believe it was my very last year of high school, I saw him at like a counselor's office or something, or not a counselor, but like some kind of registration office, and he had to give his phone number to somebody behind the desk working there. And I was sitting there waiting for another appointment or just to talk to somebody about something relating to something. I don't remember what the hell it was, but he gives his phone number, and I'm in the background, and I'm just like, I used to know that phone number by heart. And he looks back at me and he smiles, and then he heads off. And it was kind of a fun little like somber / happy moment of like, yeah, we used to be friends. Yeah. And then, so that was it. And then I guess the kind of closing chapter of that, which I am glad that he and I, before things just ended, I'm glad that we gave an ending to our story. And then the final chapter of just this whole topic is basically in college. I decided one day, it might have even been in my last year of college, I decided to marathon the entire Donkey Kong Country animated series. It's not a good show. But if anything, I love their interpretations of the characters that were from the game. Even though the show itself was pretty shitty, I really found Donkey and Diddy to be pretty funny. Funky was all right. He was kind of funny. Cranky was hilarious. Found out that he was Dr. What's-His-Face from Are You Afraid of the Dark, which was kind of amusing. The creepy doctor guy that shows up in a million episodes. And King K. Rool and Clump and Crusher were all pretty amusing, especially King K. Rool and his songs and his rapping and his "Why not" is the best. So, yeah, that's it. That was a very long and arduous story, and I don't think I've ever really told this in full to anybody. So congratulations, you all know something very personal and weird about me and my relations to a fucking video game ape character. So there you go. Thanks for listening. I'll have hopefully the other topic that I was planning on for this weekend. I won't spoil what it is or the guest, but look forward to it. And in the meantime, tell me, did you play any of the Donkey Kong Country games or DK64 or Diddy Kong Racing? What are your maybe I'll do a sequel to this about the actual games, but most of it had to do with the show and the show that we made in tandem with it, I guess. But tell me your thoughts about, I guess, anything relating to Donkey Kong Country in the comments below. I'm curious. And also, if you have ideas for future Kirblog topics other than the one that I'm going to do this weekend, leave a comment about that too, or hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, whatever you feel like. That's it. I'll see you later. Banana Slammer.
Clump Crusher! Hey, boss. Yes, sir, King Karoo, sir. Shut up, you imbeciles! You ninnies! You newts! Get me the crystal coconut! Weep woo! Listen up, Dr. Young. You gotta get the crystal coconut back from King Karoo and his stupid crocodile hench people.
Whoa, okay, Craig. Come on, little buddy. We gotta get the crystal coconut back. You bet. Come on, DK. We gotta sing a song about getting the crystal coconut back from Karoo.
Oh, we gotta get the crystal coconut and then all the king.
I was being sarcastic.
Yarr, I'm gonna get the crystal coconut because it be the birthright of me great-great-grandpappy Scurvy. May he rot in hell. Arr.
Hey, Donkey Dude and Diddy Dude, I gotta go bleach my roots.
Oh dear, my barrel factory, mine!
Also, Candy and Dixie were in it.